welcome to this video on equilibrium. A quick recap: producers are those who sell things, and this is dealing with the supply for a product. And consumers are those who buy things, and this is dealing with the demand for a product. Now, producers, they want to sell when the price is high to earn more profit. And consumers want to buy when the price is low so they can save money. Okay? So when the price is high, producers want to sell more products, but consumers want to buy less products. So when the price is high, items are not being bought. That means we're going to have a surplus of items. When the price is low, producers want to sell less items because it's not worth it to go through all the effort if you're not going to be able to charge that much money for it. On the other hand, when the price is low, consumers want to buy more products. You have to pay less for the product, you want to buy more. Because of this, there's not going to be enough items available for everybody. This leads to a shortage. When is the price at a good amount? Well, let's say producers sell 5 items at this price and consumers want to buy 5 items at this price. This means that every item is being bought and there's enough items available for everybody. So at this specific price, it is at the right spot. This is called the market equilibrium price, where the quantity supplied, the amount of things that producers want to sell, is equal to the quantity demanded, the amount of things that consumers want to buy, which means there's no surplus and no shortage in the market. Here's how it looks like in our model. Okay. So in our model right here, you have the demand curve sloping downwards and you have the supply curve sloping upwards. At this specific price where supply and demand meets, this is called the equilibrium because the quantity supplied is the same as the quantity demanded. So at the equilibrium price, the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. What happens if we're not at the equilibrium price? For example, what happens if we're at this price right here? Well, this price, you can see that since the price is high, the quantity demanded is going to be very low. People don't want to buy that many items because it's a very high price. And since the price is high, producers, the quantity supplied is going to be higher. So now the quantity supplied is going to be greater than the quantity demanded. This leads to a surplus. If the price is higher than the equilibrium price, then the quantity supplied will be greater than the quantity demanded. And this leads to a surplus. When there's a surplus, producers are eventually going to start lowering the price until it comes back down to the equilibrium level. This is to avoid items going to waste. You see, the price will eventually start coming down back to the equilibrium when there's a surplus. On the other hand, if you have a price that's low like this, at a lower price, producers are not going to want to go through all that trouble, so the quantity supplied is going to be very low. And when the price is low, people want to buy a lot of stuff, so the quantity demanded is going to be higher. So here, the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied, leading to a shortage. If the price is lower than the equilibrium, then the quantity demanded will be greater than the quantity supplied, causing a shortage. Now, when there's a shortage, producers are going to then increase the price until it reaches the equilibrium level. They see all these people trying to buy the item, they're just going to raise the price. This is how you can see it over here. There's a shortage, the price is eventually going to start going up until it goes back to the equilibrium. In a free and competitive market, we will naturally return to the equilibrium given enough time. So basically, the producers are going to adjust the price so that it comes back to the equilibrium level. However, the demand and supply curves can also shift, resulting in a change in equilibrium itself. So here's an example. This is the original equilibrium level. You know this because at this price, the quantity demanded and quantity supplied are equal. But what happens if there's an increase in demand? The entire demand curve is going to shift to the right. Okay? When the demand curve shifts to the right, now at the previous price, the quantity supplied is less than the quantity demanded, which means we have a shortage. So what's going to happen is after the increase in demand, since the original price results in a shortage because the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied, because of this, producers are going to increase the price like this until it goes back up to a new equilibrium point where the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. So when there's a shift in a curve, it results in a brand new equilibrium, basically. Here's an example of what we just said. So if there's an increase in demand, the demand curve is going to shift to the right, resulting in this new equilibrium level right here. I've shown it by labeling it PE1 as a continuation of the original PE. The new one is PE1. Same thing here. This was the original equilibrium quantity, QE. After the shift, we have a new equilibrium quantity, so I've labeled it QE1 right there. After the shift, we can see what happened to the equilibrium. The increase in demand made the equilibrium price increase to a new level that's higher than before. And it also made the equilibrium quantity, which means both the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied at that point, increase to a new level that was higher than the one before. There's other possible shifts as well. Another one we're going to look at is a decrease in demand. So if there's a decrease in demand, I'm going to shift the demand curve to the left, and that results again in a new equilibrium. But now the decrease in demand made the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity both decrease. As you can see labeled right here, lower than the originals. Another thing that could happen is that there could be an increase in supply. When there's an increase in supply, the supply curve is going to shift to the right. And again, you end up with a new equilibrium level. So we show that right here. And what happens is with the increase in supply, the equilibrium price went down and the equilibrium quantity went up. Finally, the last shift that could happen is a decrease in supply. When there's a decrease in supply, the supply curve is going to shift to the left. You can see here that there's a new equilibrium point right there. So we're going to label that. And what ends up happening is that the equilibrium price ends up being higher than the original, and the equilibrium quantity ends up being lower than the original. Now, what happens if both demand and supply shift at the exact same time? Well, an easy way to do this is to draw these graphs that we did before, and then you can see the results. If there's two of them shifting at the same time, you're going to combine those results. Okay. So for example here, if demand increases, the price at the equilibrium goes up and the quantity at the equilibrium goes up. But if supply is increasing at the same time, that's going to cause the equilibrium price to go down and the equilibrium quantity to go up. Since in both scenarios, we can see that the equilibrium quantity is increasing, we know for sure that the equilibrium quantity will increase. But since the equilibrium price went up in this scenario, but down in that scenario, we can't really say what's happening to the equilibrium price without having concrete data. So for now, we're just going to say that the equilibrium price is going to be unknown or indeterminate. Here's another example where you combine the results. So here we have demand increases, which leads to more equilibrium price and a greater equilibrium quantity. At the same time, supply decreases, which makes the equilibrium price go up and the equilibrium quantity go down. Since the equilibrium price is going up in both of the scenarios, then we know for sure the equilibrium price will increase. But again, the quantity is not agreeing with each other, so we're going to make it unknown or indeterminate. Thank you for listening in this video. See you in the next one.